Welcome to another week of the morning meeting, but not just any week, debate week. Could be the biggest week yet in what is turning into a very complicated race. Welcome, Sean, Tim, and I are glad to have you here, whether you're watching on YouTube or here on the two-way platform. We're delighted to have you. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, if you're on two-way, please raise your electronic hand. Curious to know what questions you think should be asked in the debate or topics covered, and we'll run through the day book and talk a bit amongst ourselves and get to your questions. So please, if you want to be part of it, raise your hand. Limited schedule, not surprising on the day of the debate. Vice President is, as of now, simply flying from Pittsburgh to Philly. A great flight, by the way. If you've never done it, I recommend it. At 4:40 Eastern time, and then arrives in Philadelphia. Donald Trump, no events. Tim Walz in Dallas at a fundraiser. J.D. Vance, no known events. Doug Emhoff in North Carolina, doing some fundraising. President Biden is coming back into town from holiday and has an event related to the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, and Disability Pride Month. And then on September 11th, he and the vice president are campaigning, or not campaigning, I should say, commemorating together the tragic events of September 11th, 2001, visiting all three venues where the terrorists struck. Tonight, 6 o'clock Eastern time, begins a 2-hour block of two-way programming to tee up the debate. Lauren Leader will host from 6 to 7. Again, you can watch on YouTube as well as on two-way with a couple of great guests, or not a couple, three great guests to talk about both the debate coverage and campaign coverage. April Ryan, Tara Palmieri, Lisa Lair at the New York Times. And then I'll be on at 7. Right after Lauren, I'll be on at 7 with a debate preview with, amongst others, Brett O'Donnell, Joel Payne, Tricia McLaughlin, and Fred Davis. Please join us for the full 2 hours. You won't want to miss it. As always, if you do miss it, you can always watch the replays on YouTube. All right, guys. My first question is about the New York Times poll, which dominated yesterday, and people are still talking about. Tim, non-event, outlier, sign of things to come. What's your main takeaway from the New York Times poll?
Yeah, I think my main takeaway is maybe advice for Democrats, which is if Trump +1 in a national poll really makes you nervous or angry or anxious, like the next 50 plus days here are going to be really hard because this race is tightening. It's very tight. It's a question now, I think, as to whether or not, yes, it's one poll. Yes, it's a good poll. It's a high quality poll. Is it a reversion or is it an outlier? I think we actually need more polls to know that. I think Nate Cohn has kind of said that. I feel like the tendency sometimes is if you get a bad poll, you want to quibble with it, you want to go into the crosstabs and find some things that are wrong with that. I actually think there are some bright spots or opportunities for Democrats here, which is to say we have done a good job at consolidation, but there is still an opportunity, particularly for folks who are saying they don't know enough about Kamala Harris, that is larger in the non-white community. It's larger with young voters. So there is some possibility for movement there. But yeah, I mean, it's not a poll that makes Democrats super happy.
Tim, let me just ask you before Sean weighs in. You seem to suggest that Donald Trump might stay ahead or be ahead sometimes in national polls. Do you disagree from what I think is the conventional wisdom that she needs to be up +3 or more in national polls to win the Electoral College, or you think we're in a different terrain now and she can be even and in national and still win?
I think that is a really tricky question. I'm not sure the right answer to that. I don't think it has to necessarily be +3, +4. It could be +2. Obviously, like the more padding, the more comfortable Democrats feel. But it is such a complicated question about vote share and where it's coming from and which states and which demographics that it's hard to say like solidly year over year with these like small sample events that are presidential elections that we need to have, 4+4. I mean, like, should we have +2, +3? I think that's like the comfortable padding that we need, but it's a little bit of a speculative question. It's hard to say.
Okay, Sean, your main view of the New York Times poll.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, I think any poll has to be taken in context. It's good, but it actually buttresses what you're seeing both in the predicted and in the other markets, the predicted market, Nate Silver's model, which is good for Trump, meaning that it shows that the Kamala honeymoon is somewhat over. Trump is in a good place. He's better in terms of historically than Biden or Clinton he was against them. looking back for 8 years. So there's a lot of good news in there for Trump. To Tim's point, I would be a little bit more concerned if we were down 4 nationally. We all understand the point of a national poll or lack thereof. I like the fact that it's still tight. Trump is still seen by a wide margin as the agent of change. I think it's 53-28. She's still largely unknown, which explains a lot of the tactics in the last 24 hours I think we'll talk about. As far as I'm concerned, it's a very good poll if you're Team Trump, considering the narrative and where it has been for the last several months. I mean, this is not like a blowout race, but if you had just closed your eyes and woken up and someone read you the pages of the last four weeks, I think you would assume that Kamala Harris should be up 4 to 8 points nationally. So I think it's good. It pumps the brakes and resets the race at a critical time.
All right, we'll talk a lot more about the debate tomorrow, and tonight. But in terms of expectations, the standard is to try to play down expectations for your side. Neither campaign really did that up until, I'd say, the last couple of days in any serious way. Last couple of days, Trump has said, the thing is stacked against me. Not I'm a bad debater and she's a great debater, but the press is so biased and ABC is so biased that if I win, I'll be lucky. And her team has gone to Trump's the most experienced debater in presidential campaign history. And, she's new to this, et cetera. So just heading into the debate, just as analysts of spin and narrative control and all that, Sean, first, is the Trump campaign set up here well to lower expectations for him or not?
Yeah, first I want to start on Monday.
Does it matter anymore? Because
no, I will tell you this. I've never been a big believer. I think we go back of the importance of debates. I think the last debate reset that thinking big time. But this one, because it's probably the only one, because she's not known, I think I have suspended all of my beliefs about debates. And tomorrow night, I think is extremely consequential for both sides. That said, I want to start with a hat tip, a little bipartisanship to start the week. I had predicted she'd be out at a Wawa or a Sheetz. Instead, she went to a spice shop. That's smart. That was really smart of her. Anyone who has the foresight to go to a spice shop. Anyway, look, I will tell you this one nugget that I'll throw out there. I think that you're going to see Donald Trump delve into her record as a DA and an AG more than people expect. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about crime and her record and what she has done to prosecute or let off certain people. That's my nugget for today.
Okay. Tim, Sean ignored my question. How's the expectations going? Is either of them considered to be the favorite, or it really doesn't matter? They're both adults running for president and all this spin is meaningless.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the expectations game is a little muddled. I don't think anyone is walking into this debate with a higher bar. I think Donald Trump sort of embedded in who he is and his personality with all the expectations that he brings with him. That bar is traditionally just lower for him. I do think Trump, you've seen him, rally after rally tell us that Kamala Harris is dumb, low IQ, don't respect her. I think in that way, he's lowered the bar for her as someone who's going to get on the stage and prosecute him and be very active. I mean, going back to her debates for when she was running for AG, her vice presidential debate, she is very sharp on her feet. So I think he has lowered the bar a little bit there. To Sean's point, though, I think you want to avoid also in the expectations game for both sides packing so much into one moment being the defining moment of a campaign that it is unrecoverable if something goes wrong or your performance there is an absolutely defining performance for the rest of the campaign. And I think both campaigns have done a good job at doing that. That said, I do think there is some expectation for viewers when they tune in and they see Kamala Harris on stage. They're going to be asking themselves the question, they haven't seen her in the setting as much as they've seen Donald Trump in the setting. Can I see Kamala Harris as president? Is this a leadership style I can see someone in the Oval Office? Obviously, she brings the qualifications of being vice president, but that presentation is just going to be different for her and be held to a little bit of a different standard than Trump, which I don't think is fair, but I think that is with all the definability questions, something that will be front and center.
So two quick things. One, this
I
goes
agree.
back to Tim's point. This goes back to the New York Times poll. Most people know everything about Donald Trump. There's very little that he can do tomorrow night to shock anybody in terms of behavior, comments, things that he can say. They're looking at her. 28% still don't say they need enough. How she presents herself, how she comes across, that sense that what Tim was talking about, does she look presidential, is going to be important. And that leads into my second and last point. We talked about this in previous contexts. Optics are going to matter. Think about the point of that CNN interview with Dana Bash. And I know it's different because you're at podiums, but Trump, the height difference, we go back to the Kennedy-Nixon debate in terms of what people saw. I think the optics are going to matter tomorrow night. The muted mics, and to answer one of the people in the chat, yes, they are off, but that doesn't mean you won't be able to hear things. And so not just the optics visually, but the optics audibly. How does he say something that gets picked up? Does she react to something? There's a lot of things in this debate that are going to matter. And the one last thing I'll say is for all of us on this platform that we're super and hyper engaged in what's going on, we look at some certain things. For the vast amount of American voters who are tuning in maybe for the first time, their expectations is very different than I think for people who are very hyper watching the ping pong ball go back and forth every day about what comment he made or where he went. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see if there's two views of tomorrow night, people who've been engaged and people who've not.
Yep. All right. Again, if you want to get in the conversation, please raise your hand. We're going to go to you folks shortly. Guys, let's keep this short because we can talk about it forever. Last night, the Harris campaign finally put on the website a bunch of policy positions. I've not seen the RNC or anybody else dissect them yet. I haven't time to read them all. I started reading them. They're pretty generic, not like super detailed in terms of policy, but they punched that ticket. So, Tim, what's the point of doing that before the debate? Just so they can say they can do it? Is it a defensive move or is it offense in any way?
I think it's defensive in the sense that they can say we have a policy page up. Those policies exist. They've rolled out enough white papers and staked out enough positions to make the page clear. But also, you notice on the page there's a lot of Project 2025 contrast. So as much as it is like an issues page, it's also like an anti-issues page. Sean's laughing because he knows Project 2025 is the most important thing any voter cares about. But it also is if you look at the style of it compared to the Trump page, which is like the Agenda 47 page, it's also very similar, right? So it's a little bit of like both of these campaigns are just they have their pages up. This is not really an issue. Trump can stop using this as a talking point.
Look, this is to your point, Mark. I'll use a different verbiage here. This is a box checked. It's silly. One of the things is keeping your rent low. You're the president of the United States. If you honest to God, I mean, there's a level of just stupidity here. If you really think that the president of the United States, and by the way, go to the tab. There's nothing, she says, keep rent low for Americans. And then it talks about mortgage rates and whatever, which has to do with home ownership, not rent low. It has nothing on national security, nothing on the military, nothing on veterans, nothing on immigration, nothing on border security. This was at best a box to check to satisfy the likes of Politico, Axios, CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post to say, and I mean, when I first read the Politico version of this, which said she put up a detailed analysis, I thought to myself, what do you guys get away with if that's considered, I mean, a detailed analysis? I would have loved to have had you as a professor in college.
All right. We'll talk more about this, I suspect, after we see what the analysis of the whole thing is. But let's bring in Lauren. Lauren, thanks for joining. Tell people who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind. Hold on, Lauren. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Let's try one more time. Try again. Still don't hear you. Give you one more chance to fix it. We'll bring you back. All right, Lauren, keep working on it. See if you can figure it out. Stay right there. We'll leave you on. Keep working on it. Let's bring in Governor McCrory, who I know Governor McCrory knows how to work his volume. Governor, unmute you. Tell us what's up with you, how you're thinking about the debate, or what else is on your mind.
3 quick points. One is the person who will win the debate will be the one who has an advisor who's actually participated in a debate. And I know Trump has got the former Hawaii Congresswoman, who I think is a great move to use her as an advisor. I always hated as a candidate to get advice from someone who'd never been in a debate themselves. It's like having a football coach who's never played football. I would go, are you kidding me? You have no idea how her mind is scrambled during these debates. Second, the opening and closing comments, even though the rules don't have opening comments, if you're a good debate person, you know what you're going to say that first 30 seconds, and the last 30 seconds are crucial. That's more important in the practicing than anything. And third, I think the thing up in the air is, what will ABC play? Will they ask loaded questions? Will they ask follow-up loaded questions? Will they accuse the candidates of not answering the question and participate in the debate themselves? I think that's the biggest unknown. CNN did not participate in the debate. What will ABC do? And to me, that could determine the results of the debate. Is what role does ABC, the two moderators, play?
I recommend you go watch Jonathan Karl's questions that he asked of Liz Cheney yesterday, if you want a sense of how ABC is going to play this. That would be my recommendation.
I did watch it. And by the way, the white papers that they're presenting, I had more detailed white papers when I ran for Charlotte City Council than I see for the presidency of the United States. It's a sad commentary.
So
right,
what
Governor,
did your
thank you.
issues page look like?
Yeah.
Is that?
I'm just kidding. I said, what did your issues page look like?
Yeah. Thank you, Governor. Hey, Tim, while we give Lauren another chance to unmute. Try it now, Lauren. Tim, how do you respond to the charge that it's scant, that there's not a lot of, as we say, meat on the bones?
I mean, I think the papers that they have put out, I feel like do have some substantive policy in them. And it's also a bit of a game of, it's a couple things. One, I'm not sure voters are, diving deep into like 10, 20 pages of white papers to get answers. It's directional. It's about the policy top line that they care about. Two, I think like on the game of contrast of policy that Harris has put out versus policy that Trump has put out, I just don't know that there's credibility to the charge that like she does not have enough meat on the bone on the policy that she's planning to, like, look at the child care answer that he gave last week that shows that he hasn't even thought about that as an answer. So I think, I'm not sure it's a decisive thing. I do think one thing is like, for some voters who are still tuning in and learning more about Harris, those policy ideas are a gateway for them to learn more about her. So it's important in that sense.
I think the big difference is Trump has been president. You know where he stands on issues. It's not like anyone's questioning his stance on the border or on healthcare or anything like that. You either like it or you didn't, and you know where he's coming from.
Yeah. All right, Katie, go ahead. Remind everybody who doesn't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Am I unmuted?
Good, Katie, go ahead.
Yep.
No, you're all good,
Okay.
Katie. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm from Virginia, and I am supporting no one right now. I'm not on either side. I dislike them both equally. My question was about the debate. For those of us that are still undecided, do you think that the moderators are going to keep them like answering the questions, or are they just going to let them like dance around the answer like they always do? Is it worth tuning in for?
Katie, as a consumer of news and someone trying to figure out who to pick, let's say one of the candidates says the sky is green. Do you think the opponent should say, my opponent is wrong about the color of the sky? Or do you think the ABC moderators should say, for the record, you have the color of the sky wrong? Which do you think is better for America, and why?
Probably obviously, I think it would be the other candidates that should say that. So I don't know. I guess that they equally don't want to answer the questions. I don't know. Every debate I watch, it's just no one ever says anything that's worth listening to.
Katie, what region of Virginia do you live in?
I live in Virginia's 5th. I'm in Lynchburg.
Yeah, you're in Lynch. Okay, Lynchburg, out west.
Mm-hmm.
Currently Bob Good for at least another few more days. Interesting. Okay, I'm just asking because obviously that's Northern Virginia versus Hampton Roads. I'm actually intrigued that do you think that a lot of people like you in the Lynchburg area share that view about the debate and issues? Or
surrounding me, I don't think that there's anyone.
I was going to say that's a pretty Trump country area.
Yeah, and I am a conservative. I'm a former Republican. Like I worked for the Romney campaign. Like I've just been so embarrassed by Donald Trump and his behavior. It's just his behavior is just. I'm one of those college educated women that has been so turned off that I support no one. Like I am not a Democrat, but I don't know. I'm at the point where I'm starting to believe that maybe Donald Trump needs to be defeated so soundly to go away that I would maybe consider voting for Ms. Harris.
Katie, what is
Katie,
the
where are you going to watch the
question?
debate?
Oh, sorry.
So
Well, that was the first question, Mark.
sorry.
She wasn't. Can I just before Tim weighs in? I look. Here's what I would argue. To answer Mark's questions, I think it's important that you watch. I hope that you that you focus that people see issues tomorrow night. And to answer your question, or more importantly, Mark's question, I think it's not the job of the moderators to play traffic cop. They ask the questions, they bring up the subject. If you don't like their answer, that's telling. I think it's incumbent upon the candidates to try to earn your vote and express to you as a voter, as an American, why their position on X issue matters. If they obfuscate, that's telling to you, and it's telling to a lot of Americans. But I don't believe it's the job of the moderator. Maybe it is the job of their opponent to pick it out and to say, you didn't hear an answer, did you? But I
So
truly,
Sean, let's say Donald Trump says, I've never been convicted of a crime, and you're the moderator. You just sit there and let him say that?
well, you go, Ms. Harris. It's not your job. I mean,
Really?
I think you want to present
It's
a black
not your
and
job
white
to correct anything. If Donald Trump says, I am not Donald Trump, I am Zuro
Okay, but-
Escobar. I mean, you're saying,
Okay, and you know what?
I'm not taking a position. I'm saying you say correct nothing. Correct
No, I
nothing
don't,
if
because
you're the
I
moderator.
agree, because it's not the job, because the problem is that what the media considers balls and strikes to most of us on the conservative side are hardly ever that. So you want to give a very black and white example, right? That's not how it goes,
Okay.
right? Donald Trump will
What
say,
if-
I've
what if
been
Kam-
fighting.
What if Kamala Harris says, I have always supported the free market in healthcare?
It's up to Donald
that go.
Trump. It's not, first
to
of all,
Donald
David
Trump.
Muir and Lindsey Davis aren't going to do anything. But secondly, it's not their job. It's up to Donald Trump. This is a debate between those two people who want to be our president, not David Muir and Lindsey
All right,
Davis.
hold on. I want to get more folks in. Katie, come back tomorrow. Tell us, or Wednesday rather. Tell us what you thought of the debate. Okay. Thank you. All right, Lauren, we're going to give you another chance here. You're unmuted.
Can you
Give it
hear
a
me?
try.
Can someone
Yes,
hear me?
There you go.
Oh, thank
You
God.
got
Okay.
it.
Sorry, I had to. Okay,
Go
whatever.
ahead.
Love the show. Awesome. Democrat leaning, but really undecided. Don't like Harris much at all.
Where do
so
you live,
far.
Lauren? Where do you live, Lauren?
Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Voted
Okay.
Democrat my whole life. Most of my friends.
Why are you reluctant to vote for? Were you going to vote for Biden?
No, I couldn't vote for Biden. I don't mind what he did for the most part, but he was too old and I felt really bad for him. So
okay, and so why are you reluctant to vote for Harris? And then I'll give you the floor back.
I got my notes. The culture stuff is number one. I think she's far left, and I think she's pretending not to be, but I think she's actually far left. Immigration. I'm a project manager. If I'm given a project, I don't just do this tiny part I'm given. I take ownership of the whole thing, and I just kind of feel like that's what she should have done. I don't think that she did. She's big government, left, right, center, all big government, money. We need to bring stuff back to the states, and so that's my point of view. Republicans, the tariff idea is terrible. Election integrity is my number one thing, and that was January 6th, and all that was crazy. And I want to see more gun regulation. This is my question, and I want someone to poke holes in this, potentially legally. I don't know. But if I'm Trump and abortion comes up in the debate, and I say, he won't say this, but this is what I would say. I realize that this was a change. What I want to do, and I'm going to force or encourage or force the states, this needs to be on the ballot by 1/1/2026, a popular vote on what your state's going to do about it. Because I think that when he says turn it back to the states, I think, okay, that means that the far left in Madison, Wisconsin is going to just have it be that it's up till whatever, But I feel like if it's a popular vote, state by state, by 1/1/2026, I don't see how somebody can say that's not a good idea when it's literally putting it back to the people of the democracy in each state. And then you decide which state's best for you. So what's wrong with that legally? Will he actually ever consider doing that?
The main flaw in that, Lauren, is most states don't have ballot measures where citizens can vote. I think it's most. It's certainly a large number. My state doesn't have it. I don't think Wisconsin has it. I don't think you have ballot measures in Wisconsin. So a few states do, and they get a lot of attention because it's kind of interesting. Florida does, Arizona does, California does. but I'd say that's, I don't know, somebody will Google and put it in the chat. Small number do. Tim, Sean, thoughts on
No,
that?
yeah,
or
I think
anything
you're
else
right, Mark. I feel
Lauren
like the
said?
number is around like half of the states. It's like 24 or 25 do not have that process. So that's one problem. I mean, the argument that I think Democrats would make there is like what we have right now is you have seen states like Ohio, Michigan, even Kentucky, Kansas do the more pro-choice option when given whatever version of that question on their ballot. And the issue is like creating a patchwork of laws like that across the country can be really harmful. Like you got to drive really far out of the deep South potentially if that's the policy in order to get healthcare. I think that's the issue. Before I go to Sean. Just I'm curious, Lauren. Like if there is one question you would want answered in the debate, what would the question be?
Oh my gosh. So even though I didn't mention this as my top big three, I think foreign policy is something I'm really afraid of with Kamala. I think that naturally people are going to think that Trump is going to be better on it. So I think my question would be, Kamala, you said in 2019 you want to go back in the Iran nuclear deal, which I think was horrendous. What are you planning on doing about Iran? Like, how are the Houthis still able to be setting ships on fire? And like, I just don't feel, so I really want to like, what is your plan for foreign policy and how are you going to keep us out of World War III? Because I think that's unfortunately where we're going. And I think naturally people trust Trump on that because there weren't any wars when he was, so that would be my question.
Lauren, one other point on the abortion thing. Thank you for that question on foreign policy, which is, I think a lot of people who consider abortion a fundamental right think it should be protected by the federal government rather than left up to the states, right? You wouldn't say Delaware could have a vote on whether gay people should be allowed to ride on buses. You'd say no, Delaware is not allowed to decide that. So those who think it's a constitutional right.
As a gay person, I definitely would not appreciate that.
Yeah, but so you wouldn't want a state to be able to decide that. You'd say the federal government should say no state can keep gay people from riding buses.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, so that's the other point. Sean, comment on the abortion question or anything else you wish. Love to know what you think Trump should say if he's asked about abortion, which he almost certainly will be.
I mean, first of all, if he's asked, he's going to repeat the hopefully the standard line about it being wrongly decided and sent back. And just keep in mind, Joe Biden had said prior to his flip-flop on the issue that Roe was wrongly decided. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it was wrongly decided. I mean, there is a difference between having an outcome and recognizing what the court did in the first place. And so I assume he's going to stick to his guns on this. I think he can't help but talk about IVF. Trump, I think, is always trying to figure out on a personal level. In other words, I don't think he's looking at polling. He's looking at his own feedback from rallies and stuff, whether to inject this IVF stuff into it. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. Just to your broader point, I think I don't want to beat the dead horse, but even if legislatures themselves decided to take it up, there's obviously no mandate that the federal government can institute to say you must, have a legislative vote, even if it's not a ballot initiative.
Yeah, Lauren, come back on Wednesday and tell us what you thought about the debate. Okay.
I will.
All powerful, undecided Wisconsin voter. All right, thank you. All right, on Warren, our affiliates, we're going to run a little bit over today. Jesse, tell folks who don't know where you're supporting and what's on your mind, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, ma'am. All yours.
Great. Well, I'm a Democrat from Boston, so going way over to the left. And I would also like to just narrow down a question for you, technically talented gentlemen, which is, I'm really worried about what Sean was talking about earlier of the physical difference in the size of Kamala and Trump at this debate, and they're going to be standing. I was trying to think back to the only time a woman has really put Trump in his place was Nancy Pelosi in the White House, and they were both sitting down. If you were advising Kamala, is there anything other than her high heels to do to try and offset? I do think the body language is going to be incredibly important. I would just add one more thing. I think I'm so happy this morning. We've had lots of women talking. I found the comments, I turn off the chat so I don't see them, but I think the comments, particularly about women's appearance, is really harsh. It's so different.
All right, so
from
Jesse,
the rest of your
Yeah, Jesse, let me address that and then turn to Sean and Tim to talk about the very real issue of just the optics of it, particularly the size differential. It's just a reality. Almost every presidential election in the television era has been won by the taller candidate, and in this case, the disparity is unprecedented. I believe it's unprecedented because I think Hillary Clinton is taller than Kamala
Maybe
Harris.
Ross
I may be wrong
Perot.
about that.
But he didn't
Yeah,
win.
maybe Ross Perot. So we urge people, whether you're commenting on YouTube or here on the two-way platform, we urge you to, whatever you write, to adhere to the ethos of what we're trying to do here. And stuff that's typical of negative comments or scatological or harsh or personal, we don't like. We could shut it down, but a lot of people enjoy the comments. I confess, I almost never read them. My colleagues tell me what's there. Sean reads them obsessively and comments on them throughout the program, which is good because someone should be doing that, not me. But we urge people not to do it. If it becomes a problem, we'll shut it down. We're heartsick that people join the platform and then engage in conduct that's completely antithetical to what we're trying to do. And we're going to grapple with it for time immemorial as long as two ways around. But I'm sorry you have to be subjected to comments like that. But it's just the cost of having an open platform, and some people are idiots, which is not necessarily in the spirit of what we're trying to do. But I call them idiots because they're doing something so antithetical to. I don't understand why they're here on this platform if that's what they want to do. So Jesse, thank you for the great question. Tim, the vice president, I heard some reference to Trump wrote something about her wanting to stand on a box. I don't know if she's going to be allowed to do that or not. But Tim, I don't know. I read that Donald Trump raised it. But Tim, if you were advising her, what can she do?
Right.
Rise up to her full self. But
well, look, I will say one productive comment in the chat here is that Napoleon was tiny. So we have precedent for strong leadership from short people. But also, and when you go into debates, there are options, right? I don't know that she will take it. I haven't seen anything maybe besides that Trump suggestion. Look, they're called like apple boxes, right? You can stand on them. They make you look taller. I think if you stand on them and they make you look a foot and a half taller, it's gonna look weird. But if there is a height disparity, there is a chance to do something like that off camera. Obviously, like that is a very small technical thing. I think if she does it though, Trump's gonna take anything like that and try to blow it up. But we'll see. Those are always an option at debates.
But my understanding is that that's been built into the rules that they can't use props so that was agreed
upon. Does that count as a prop?
Apparently, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call that as a prop. That was probably not a great, but there is something in the rules that have been agreed upon that don't allow it. And so look, I would just say this, there's a difference. And I think to your point, Jesse, about appearance and the difference between the genders, that's one thing. But when it comes to, there's certain inherent advantages, and I say this as a short person, that tall people have when it comes to presentation. And so that's something that has been used by both sides, depending on, you had Obama very tall, Biden's very tall. I mean, there are circumstances where something benefits a candidate and they use it to their advantage. And so Trump's going to use his height. Obviously, I think anything that Kamala does, I would kind of urge the opposite. If you try to make it an issue, it's going to be one. Take it as what it is, make your performance stand on its own. It's mostly going to be in a 2-box for viewers. So if
you don't know that, Sean, you don't know that. I was about to say the director at ABC has a huge amount of power here. CNN went with a lot of 2 boxes, but they could go with wide shots. They could go with side shots, right? So
but I will bet you, considering I will just bet you, considering the issue that exists and ABC's attempt to try to help out, that you will see 2 boxes. Now, we'll talk about this on Wednesday. I think but I would be shocked if they don't do that in an attempt to minimize that disparity.
Yeah.
So that's something that we should look at on Wednesday then.
Yeah, Jesse, are you worried about your candidate tomorrow, or you got full confidence she's going to ace it?
I'm extremely worried, but mainly I just have this memory of Trump lurking over Hillary, and I just think he's so scary.
Well, that was a town hall. That was a town hall where he could move around and lurk. Here, in theory, he's locked behind his podium, so not as much lurking. Anyway, all right, Jesse, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. Come back regularly. Lots of hands up. Wish we could get to more people. Someday this show might be an hour long, but it's only supposed to be 25 minutes, and we've gone almost 35. So stop here. We'll see you tonight, Lauren Leader, 6 o'clock Eastern time, with 3 great journalists talking about coverage of the campaign. I'll be on at 7 with some strategists to talk about more about the debate. Both those are an hour. Come back, ask questions. Then 9 o'clock a.m. tomorrow, the morning meeting is back, and then we'll have all sorts of programming around the debate that you won't want to miss, which we'll announce on a rolling basis between now and then. Tim, are you nervous about your candidate?
I'm just nervous
lie,
in general. We're always nervous.
Yeah. Sean, are you nervous about Donald Trump?
Feel great.
All right. I learned from one of my old bosses, if you've got a great piece of content, use it at least 3 times. So I'm going to close with a line I've already used twice, which is predicting how Donald Trump will do in this debate is like predicting the composition of the North Korean cabinet in 2028. Impossible to do. We'll see you all at 6 o'clock Eastern time tonight. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow.